Today, exactly 50 years ago, anti-apartheid activist Imam Abdullah Haron was found dead in his cell. He had been held for months without trial under the prescripts of the Terrorism Act. The apartheid state ruled that Imam had died as a result of slipping down the stairs. But his family refuses to accept this. They are fighting for the inquest into his death to be reopened and for it to be declared a murder. Here's a special report from our Karen Monna.
Fatima Haron Massoud was just 6 years old when her father, Imam Abdullah Haron, was arrested by the apartheid police's special branch.
I remember it as if it was yesterday. I was at home. I was not at school yet. My mum was in the kitchen and there was a knock on the door. And as she was opening the door, she saw my father entering the house and she asked him, "What is the matter? What's going on?" in Afrikaans though. And I remember standing close to my mum, holding onto her skirt. And then I saw these two burly men standing next to him. And I could see my mother's tearful face, concerned face, asking continually what's going on, what's happening. And I remember seeing my father's smiley face, telling her she shouldn't worry, everything will be okay. He's just coming home to collect some papers. That's all I remember him saying.
She watched as her father collected some papers from his study and then walked back to where the policemen were waiting for him.
And as he left the door, he turned around and he smiled and he told her, "Don't worry, everything will be okay."
That day, the 28th of May, 1969, was the last time Fatima ever saw her father alive. He was held under the Terrorism Act for 4 months, and his family were not allowed to see him.
Because he was held incommunicado under the Terrorism Act, nobody was allowed to see him. My mom only saw him the day he left, and then she saw him the day he came home dead.
Imam Haron died on the 27th of September 1969, exactly 50 years ago. Apartheid police claimed he'd fallen down the stairs in the Maitland police station where he had been held. Fatima still vividly remembers seeing her father's body when he was brought home for burial.
All I remember, people pacifying me, family members holding me, holding my hand, picking me up. You know, I remember his cold face, very cold, when I had to greet him on his forehead. And, you know, couldn't look into his eyes because there was no eyes that was open.
Fatima says her mother steadfastly refused to accept that her father had died from falling down the stairs.
I remember she was extremely hysterical and she wouldn't believe that it is so because she said slipping down stairs can't have caused all these bruises. You know, his legs, his back, his abdomen. She said it's impossible.
This is footage from a 2011 documentary produced by Imam Haron's grandson, Khalid Shamis, in which he spoke to his grandmother, Halima Haron, about the day she learnt of her husband's death.
There was a knock on the door. That Saturday night. And Muhammad said to me, "The police is downstairs." So the one said to the other, "You tell him." The other one said, "No, you tell her what's wrong." So I said, "Now what's wrong with him now?" So they said, "Well, he passed away." The afternoon. They said the afternoon he passed away. And in the meantime, that also been never mind him. So they said to me, "We can see his body the next day, and they're going to have an autopsy." So I only went to go and look at his face the Sunday morning when he came back, and his face was swollen, a little bit swollen. But he wasn't sad. The face wasn't sad.
As a little girl, Fatima would witness her mother struggle not only with the weight of her own grief, but also with the pain of being ostracized by people within her own community.
During that period of his death and after his death, and during the period of his incarceration, it was as if people were afraid to come to our home. They were afraid to be associated with the Imam's family. They had this immense fear. If they should be associated, they will be arrested, or they will be followed, or they'll be interrogated for many reasons. And that to me was very painful for my mom.
As a consequence of Imam Haron's death, his family lost their home, and Fatima, her brother, sister, and mother were forced to live apart from each other. At the age of 43, Fatima's mother had to get a driver's license and work as a professional seamstress to support her family.
I remember when we used to sleep at night, I used to hear her cry. And when I used to touch her, she used to push me away, you know. It's her moment of sadness. As a child, and I was thinking, oh, my mother pushing me away. But today I can understand as a grown woman, understanding my father's legacy, understanding the pain and the torture she had to go through, because she discovered the depth of his political career. She actually got to know another part of her husband that she probably never knew.
The apartheid authorities found in an official 1971 inquest that Imam Haron had died from slipping down the stairs. Fatima and her family have never accepted this verdict.
We had the opportunity to go and visit Maitland Police Station. That was in the early 90s. And when we actually saw the steps, it was about 4 steps or 5 steps. And then I remember my brother coming to me and saying, I told you. He said to me, very angrily, I told you he didn't die from slipping down these stairs. He said, if I should slip here, I'm not going to die.
The Haron family, supported by the Imam Haron Foundation, are now fighting to get the National Prosecuting Authority to reopen the 1971 inquest into his death.
We want to know the truth. It will bring some kind of comfort. We'll find out how he died, and they can't say that the family didn't try and find out what had happened.
As part of the process to get the NPA to reopen the Imam Haron inquest, the Hawks have conducted a fresh investigation into his death and are preparing a dossier with the evidence they have uncovered for the NPA.
Hopefully, as soon as that dossier is completed or to our satisfaction, the NPA then puts it to the director, which is now Shamila Batoy. When she gets the document, she studies it, and then she approaches the Minister of Justice, who then will announce that the inquest will be reopened. He then discusses it with the Judge President. The Judge President does 2 things. One, he sets a date, appoints a judge, and he finds a suitable court. We are hoping that the dossier can be completed fairly soon. We feel that in this case, that there's considerable information, and that we would want the NPA to speed up their work. We feel that 50 years has been long, 25 years into the new democracy is also long, 23 years after the TRC is also long. So this can be done fairly soon. What we don't want is the NPA to sit on their hands and think that they have another 2 or 3 years to do this.
For Fatima and her family, the reopening of her father's inquest is the only way for them to finally have peace about his death, and to understand why the Imam, who believed so deeply in social justice and risked his life to fight in the struggle against apartheid, was regarded as a terrorist by the apartheid state.
We don't want my father's story to disappear. We don't want any political prisoner story to disappear. We want the truth.
For Newsroom Africa, Channel 405, I am Karen Morn.